This episode of the Nerf Herder Council is brought to you by Audible. Visit audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download.
Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking Nerf herder!
You can't use that word. Only we can use that word.
You're tuned in to the Nerf Herder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate. Featuring your hosts, JT.
Stormtrooper armor deflects everything except Orback hooves. They're like a horse version of Thomas the Tank Engine.
AJ.
Yeah, Rebels is a lot like our show, where we think we have a good idea and then it just fails in execution.
On this episode of the Nerf Herder Council, we give our review of Star Wars Skeleton Crew with a little help from our very good friend Chris Mock, host of the Mocktails from the Cantina podcast. This is the Nerf Herder Council. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. Welcome to 2025. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and also the Facebook and YouTube of the Virtual Cantina Network. If you are watching on either YouTube channel, don't forget to click that like button, the subscribe button, and also the notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. As always, guys, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. If you would like to get customizable Nerf Herder Council swag, just go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. AJ will be telling us about an awesome new shirt design that we will have coming up here pretty soon, probably within the next few days. And if you would like to get some awesome Virtual Cantina Network swag, just go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. For the first time in 2025, Happy New Year to my best friend and co-host. Of course, he is my brother, AJ. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man? It feels like forever since we've been doing this show, right?
I know. Well, we are flexible, and the Virtual Cantina Network had other stuff they needed to get done on our show date last week, so we told them, yeah, we can push it back a week, so here we are. But it ends up working out good with my schedule for my other podcast, so now everything's lined back up again. Nerf Herder 1 week, Talking into Infinity another, and we're good to go. So
worked out awesome for our show topic tonight too.
I know, it really did, didn't it? Like, it fell perfectly on the right day for us. We're like, yeah, we could do that. So pretty cool there. Kale McLeish checking in. Always good to see you, man. He says, Happy New Year, Drakes. Happy New Year to you, Kale, as well. Always great to see you. We got the chat filling up here, which is great. Yeah, no, I'm doing good, man. As you know, we talked offline, and I had a huge bit of good news today for the family. So definitely in a great mood about that. The only shitty thing is that I had to eat a very large container of food grade crickets today, live on the internet, and it was it was not pleasant. It wasn't as bad as you would expect, but it was really, really bad. It was really bad.
That's not the worst thing you've ever done live on the internet before. Don't worry about it.
You joke, but it really kind of is. Yeah, it was.
Okay. Which was worse? Crickets or gorilla farts?
Oh, crickets by far. At least with gorilla farts, like, there's fun at the end. You know, with crickets, you just have this taste in your mouth for hours. It's ugh. And it was like, oh God. It was like, I tried to make it better because they're plain, so I put some barbecue seasoning and some adobo on it, and it really didn't cover up much. And the bummer is that when I was shaking it and I was eating out of the container, and it had to be more than 20 mouthfuls. And I thought I was taking big mouthfuls to get it done. Well, number one, they're so dry, it was a bitch to chew it all up. So the swallowing part was the hardest because there's no moisture. It was like the cinnamon challenge. So that sucked.
Surprising for you.
Oh, dude, you joke, but it's very true. Very, very true.
You've never had a hard time swallowing in the past.
God damn it. They were telling those jokes on that show too. But yeah, so it just took forever. And when I got to the last bite, all of the seasoning had gone down to the bottom corner. So what I had was like half a mouthful of crickets and half a mouthful, a ton of seasoning. And it was so dry. Like I couldn't say anything because anytime I opened my mouth, like a cloud of dust would come out. Oh, it was awful. Oof. It was so bad.
God.
Yeah. And the taste did not go away till I had dinner. So it is available online if anybody wants to see. If you go to YouTube and look up the Seth Williams Show, it's from today, and I go on about a half hour into the broadcast, and then we talk for about 10, 15 minutes, and then I start eating cricket. So if anybody wants to see it, yeah, it's Mimar, great to see you. She says, Cricket Madness, hell yeah. Nick Hall says, drier than Jakku. Yes, it was surprising. Not great. And when you have cricket legs sticking to your lips and stuff, it's pretty gnarly. So yeah. All right. So you have something that, yeah, it's that. All right. So you have something that you want to bring up on the screen here. We teased a new t-shirt design. So why don't you pull this up here and tell all the fine people, especially the audio viewers, what we've got going on.
Well, in honor of the Skeleton Crew having wrapped up its first season last night, as you know, we are wont to do, we like to put out some new gear celebrating the new shows as they come out. So what we've got here is a new design coming out to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com very shortly, which will be on sale for $23 when it premieres. And it is, of course, the Skeleton Crew logo with our glorious name instead. So you can get your very own Nerf Herder Council Skeleton Crew inspired t-shirt at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. Stay tuned to our socials. I'll announce when that goes up live, and jump on that, like I said, as soon as it gets out there, because then it's going to be on discount as a new design. So well worth the money. I've been making a lot of our own shirts lately to make sure that they still don't suck. So I can confirm that I'm putting my money where my mouth is on this one.
How's the logo size going on the chest? I know that was an issue with some of them.
Yeah, I actually I scaled it down a little bit so it doesn't print so far, into the armpits and whatnot. Okay. Or make what you want. Yeah, it's up to you. I can enlarge or shrink, but just hit me up and let me know.
Ooh, even more customization. Look at that. Customizing by the artist himself. I like it. Dude, this logo right here would look awesome on one of those acid wash shirts, man.
Yeah. Yeah, actually that would look really cool. In fact, now I'm going to have to buy one of those.
Yeah, I have several that I want to buy, so that'll be happening here pretty soon. Look at Kale. He said, "Why does the tiny little bit of engine popping out of the corner right now look like a metal Jar Jar?" It kind of does. Nice. All right, so we are supposed to have a special guest coming on here with us. Very good friend of show. We will announce him when he makes it back on. He actually was having some audio difficulties before we jumped on here. So he's trying to do the whole computer reboot thing and, get his stuff working. So we hope to have him on in a little bit here. But until then, obviously tonight's topic, we are going to be hitting all things Skeleton Crew, which of course, the season finale was last night. And as usual, guys, the views of the Nerf Herder Council do not necessarily reflect those of the Virtual Cantina Network. And there could be some bad fucking language on here. So if you don't like that, it's not the show for you. And there will be spoilers. So if you guys are trying to remain spoiler-free for anything Skeleton Crew, you might want to skedaddle. All right. So here's our special guest host. Let's see if he got his microphone working. All the way from beautiful suburban Chicago, Illinois. He is one of our very best show buddies. You know him, you love him. He is the host of the fantastic Mocktails from the Cantina show. He is, of course, our very good friend, Mr. Chris Mocked. Do we have audio? We have audio.
Is this thing on?
Oh,
Yay,
audio. There we go.
Holy shit. Sorry about that, boyos. Happy New Year to you.
What's up? I think you planned that because we literally just went into the intro of what we're going to be talking about. You missed the whole show intro for about 8 minutes of talking about other crap.
No, I heard about the crickets because I was tuning in on my phone. And
Nice.
let me ask you this. What the hell were you getting out of this eating cricket thing?
I lost the
Fair
bet.
question.
I
You
lost the bet.
Okay, now
Yeah.
what was that bet?
So it's a local show here. It's a guy named Seth Williams who was a co-host for the biggest like afternoon drive show in Cleveland for like 25 years. And the host passed away a couple years ago. And now Seth does his own show on the internet on StreamYard and stuff. And I go on occasionally because my best friend Chris Aiken is co-host. And I do a little Cleveland Browns segment during Browns season for them. I do like a 5-minute segment after games and shit. Well, we did a bet, and Seth is just the ultimate negative Nelly. And so he's always, oh, they suck. They're going to lose everything. And so this year Chris got me and Seth to bet on how many wins. And I had said they were going to go 10-7. And Seth said he said they're going to win 4 games. So basically, if they won more than 4, Seth had to eat crickets. If they won 9 or less, I had to eat crickets. Well, of course, they won 3, so I was the only one that had to do it. So today was paying off the bet.
It was a Cleveland Browns bet.
Yes,
I think Seth should have had to eat crickets too because he was wrong.
Well, dude,
You guys are both wrong.
He said maximum 4. His was a maximum. Mine was a minimum.
Damn it.
It's
So,
an over
yeah.
kind of thing, right? Over-
Exactly. Exactly.
I gotta check that segment out, or do I really want to see gross shit?
Oh yeah, no, there's no puking, but there's definitely some facial expressions and
I'm
yeah, and boy, they were having a blast with it. So yeah,
You
it's
could have seen
definitely-
my facial expressions when I just heard about the news that you were eating crickets.
Oh, it's not pleasant. Believe me. They were calling me a trooper, and I'm getting text messages like, "I can't believe you actually went through with it," and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So, Chris, thanks for coming on. First of all, Happy New Year. I haven't talked to you in a bit. Haven't had you on the show. So, how are
Happy
things?
New Year to you guys, man. And that was quite the introduction he gave me. A special guest. I'm humbled by that. You guys are kind of like we got a little bit of a mobster thing going. You guys support my show. You've been supporting my show for a long time. When I get an invitation to be on the Nerf Herder Council, can't say no. Because you guys have been supporting me. I love being on the show, but I also feel like it is my way of supporting you guys. Aside from tuning in when I do tune in, I thank you again for the invite, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm so happy to be here talking about Skeleton Crew tonight.
Not a problem. I'll let AJ ask some questions because he's got a lot of stuff that he wants to get to. But I wanted to have you on because we've done season recap shows with you before, and
Right.
you're a host of you're a host of your own show as well. So I mean, you know how this rolls, and I think you've always brought some awesome input to the show. So I loved doing this with you.
Well, thank you, man.
It was like, yeah, no problem. I mean, it's always a blast. So I figured, hey man, let's get Chris on and do it all over again. So
Star Wars is all about the continuity. I've been on the review shows before, so why not keep it going, right?
exactly. All right. So AJ, why don't you start us off here? I don't know if we want to wait till the end to give our overview of the show, or if you want to start getting into some of these talking points. Because you said last night, like, how long are we going? I got so many things I want to. Like,
Oh yeah. No. First off, I love the fact that Chris, I have no idea what your thoughts are on the show. So this is going to be like a live react to your reaction. 'Cause
Yeah.
We don't actually know what you think. You could be like, this is the worst thing ever. This is like the EOP shitting in episode 1, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. Maybe you're a hater. Who knows? We're going to find out live. But yeah, I would like to just set the table with like what you all thought of the show. Just general overview thoughts. Like, is it S tier, A tier, the whole tier list thing.
God, I mean, this is blasphemous. It's Star Wars. I love everything Star Wars. I know I'm the odd man out, especially in this new era, but I felt this show was the most fun. It's the show that did not leave me with Star Wars blue balls for once. And I felt like it really played out like a movie. Now, I did sit down. I got really tied up in the Christmas spirit. So I did not watch one episode of Skeleton Crew until New Year's Day. And I watched
Wow.
6 episodes. I did not watch anything until the next episode, which was last night, and the finale today. So I did it in 3 sittings. I got to say, man, binging a show that only has 8 episodes. I really enjoyed that experience. I did not really do that intentionally. It was just, busy with Christmas, and I didn't like in the past waiting for next week. Look, this isn't the 1970s anymore. Right. I want to watch shit right now, all of it in one sitting. I know everybody likes gathering around in the room, waiting for the next week to happen. I missed out on that, and I really think that this added to a great experience that I had watching this. Overall, the acting was phenomenal. It reminded me that people need to stop tooting George Lucas's horn, me included. Jake Lloyd was really not that great compared to the kids, especially the female lead as a kid actor in this Skeleton Crew show. She fucking nailed it. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. Kale McLeish says, I got to be honest, I'm watching this to find out if it's worth picking it back up. We watched the first 4 and gave up. It's the first Star Wars show where I've thrown in the towel. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay.
I recall the 4th episode. That's where Kim gets introduced, right? The beakless owl, basically.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Chris, I'm with you. I really, really enjoyed it. We'll get to the ending later. I think that's really my only complaint. AJ, I'm gonna steal your phrase, but when I watched it last night, I texted AJ about it. He said he used the term "wet fart" for the ending. And so, that's, other than that, that's really my only complaint. I think what I love about this is it's like, to me, this is like the most fun Star Wars property that they've done in years.
Yes.
All the rest of it's fun because it's Star Wars, but it has a serious vibe to it and stuff, Andor, definitely, there's not really a lot of light moments there. Kenobi, is great. But speaking of binging, by the way, Chris, if you binge Kenobi, like that's the one to binge. It's like one giant long movie. It is fabulous if you do that.
Plus, it only ruins one day of the week instead of 6.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Man, show me on the doll where Kenobi touched you. But yeah, like
not a fan of Kenobi, I take it.
Oh, he just won't stop crapping on it. It's like it's such an argument between us. I loved it and he does not like it at all.
John's got the space whales, I've got Kenobi.
There it is. Yeah, but I think what's awesome about this one is like I was afraid it was going to be a little too kiddie-ish. And I think it does stay a little bit in the kiddie realm a teeny bit.
Yeah.
But I think that's fun because it's unique. I like that about it. And I think what's especially cool about it is like, we've had child heroes before, like, going back to Kenobi, you had like young Leia, you had Jake Lloyd in Phantom Menace and whatnot, but it was like they were part of the story. It was like all the stuff was happening. They weren't really, the catalyst per se. Whereas this one is kind of like for kids, it's like the little kids are the heroes and the little kids are the center of the action. It's like little kids can look at this and go, oh man, I could do that. Like I could go take on the bad guys and fly across the galaxy. Like I thought that was really, really cool. And the thing I really liked was it was the Easter eggs were so glaring throughout this show, but I loved it personally. You just talked about Kim, AJ. I mean, that's so Dark Crystal up in that observatory thing. You know what I mean?
I thought you were talking about like Star Wars Easter eggs, and this was actually
no, everything.
New.
Yeah, everything. I mean, there's Star Wars Easter eggs, but there's Easter eggs to like E.T. and like the Dark Crystal, and I loved it. I thought it was such a light, fun, kind of refreshing show without being too light and too kiddie-ish. So I loved it, and I think the biggest compliment that I think this show can get is the fact that my wife fell asleep during the second to last episode just because it comes on after 9 and she's usually asleep. She goes to bed early. And as I was coming down here, I went into the bedroom to, say goodnight, because she'll be asleep when we're done. and she was watching she had that episode on, so she's trying to finish it on her own without me, which means that she actually really, really likes it, and that doesn't usually happen with the television programs for her. So that's, I think, a great compliment. So yeah, I loved it. I was very, very, very pleasantly surprised. And unlike some of the other shows where it starts out with a bang for me and then kind of levels off, this one stayed awesome. Like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but other than that, I loved it, man. AJ, what did you think?
So I think you both raised some good points. Chris, I'm going to actually push back on the whole thing of you binging it instead of seeing it week to week. This was like that first show that I think they finally nailed that balance between a continuing serialized story, but every episode felt like it had its own, like the first season of The Mandalorian was like that, right? Where like every time the credits rolled, you couldn't wait for next week, but you felt like you got a complete story that week as well. And I feel like, sorry, dude, JT, I got to bring up Kenobi again. That one felt like that. The Acolyte felt like that, where Ahsoka felt like that, where it, rather than actually having it finish its story for the week, it's like, now we're out of runtime, roll credits. We'll just pick up, with the next scene next week.
Well, I think that's what I meant by blue balls, right? It just leaves you hanging. It doesn't, it's like, wow, couldn't you like finish the story a little bit?
Right.
You're saying these episodes were kind of like complete little stories, start to finish on their own. I felt like that too. It didn't leave you hanging all the time,
Yeah, every time credits rolled, it was like you could tell it was deliberately written. That was, you could feel it coming.
Yeah,
like,
that was
you
the end.
Felt like the story had gone on. You felt it winding towards a conclusion, and like credits roll, you're like, yes, okay, that's an episode. That felt good. And I love the fact that like, yeah, credits rolled and you felt like you got a good story that week, but you're like, oh my God, I got to wait 7 more days. Like it was the perfect balance. I really enjoyed that actually. And JT, to your point about how it was for a kid's show, but it wasn't like overly kiddie, I thought they did an amazing job of making it so they didn't have to nerf the Star Wars universe to make it kid friendly. They just made sure that the situations that they were put in weren't so dangerous that you're like, how the hell did they not, die 1,000 times over in this story?
Yeah. Well, that's
the Fratellis and the Goonies are so inept as criminals. You're like, it's strange credulity, but it's for kids. It's fine. This like didn't do that. When the pirates were being pirates, they were being pirates. And, all throughout, like, what was it? Fern, I think, said in the finale where she's like, we found good people out there too. Like everywhere they went, they were in a bad spot, and someone, a grown up who was capable, helped them out of it. It wasn't like they fought off everybody on their own and all the grown ups are stupid all of a sudden. It's like, no, they had like the dancer at the pirate stronghold in the second episode, and they had, Kim helped out, and even people at the resort planet. Like every time they got into a spot of trouble, usually, someone competent and capable and fully grown bailed them out. It wasn't
which
conquering the Star Wars universe,
I thought that was a really profound statement. I think out of all the dialogue, that was like the most powerful, the most serious. And forgive me, man, I only did one watch, so I'm horrible with the characters' names. But Jude Law's character, he had said the opposite. He's like, the world, like in that same episode, the world is full of evil. There's pin pricks of light.
Yeah.
And I thought that was and that was the whole Star Wars yin and yang thing, right? The darkness rises and the light to meet it kind of shit. I thought that was kind of cool though.
Yeah, that was a great juxtaposition. I noticed that too. And I like that you said it's like the whole Star Wars, darkness, light rises, to meet it, whatever, because it would be so easy to oversimplify it as, the innocence of youth against, the weathered kind of grizzled outlook of the adult. But, I think it's more than that. I think it's exactly what you just said, Chris. It definitely is kind of like bringing up that Star Wars balance thing that we always seem to have. So, I completely agree with that. And to your point, AJ, about, they're not the ones kicking ass and the adults are all, a bunch of schmucks and all that. That's something I wanted to bring up. The one thing that I noticed that I loved about this show was that they did an excellent job of having tension in these episodes, because like you have to know that all the kids are getting out of this. As much as I thought it would be awesome if they murder off one of the kids, because I love those dark things where everyone goes.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. When everyone's like,
wow,
what
man.
was that? And I'm like, yes. Yeah. Like I love those swerves. But anyway, like, the kids are making it out. But in almost every episode, there was something where you're like, oh my God, like you felt like, oh, are they going to get out of this? Like, they really did a great job of making it feel like there was actually something potentially bad that was going to happen. Like, how are they going to get out of this? I love that. And so it was, I just think this was done so well. It hit all the marks for me. I was engaged the whole time. And you guys bring up a good point about every episode being kind of like its own little adventure. I think if you watch one episode, you get a story, but it also ties into the bigger one. I mean, it was just awesome the way that they did it. So I really liked it. And, Chris, to a point you made earlier, the acting I thought was excellent too. The kids really did a great job. It was the whole thing. Like, I just can't say enough how much I liked it, but those certain aspects of it, I really enjoyed. Look at Kale McLeish, John just being low key Anakin just there.
Right.
Miranda Helmet, great to see you, Miranda. She says, I always gravitate towards droids. So I really like 33. He was really endearing.
He was fun. Yeah.
Jacob Rossop, 7 out of 10 podcast. Nice. All right, we got a review. I'll take 7 out of 10.
Better than usual. So I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Our scores are
coming up in the world.
John, you say, they were always putting you in a situation where, like, how are these kids going to make it out? And I think it was episode number 6 at the end where they essentially took off in the skeleton of the ship, right? When they hit that button that they told her not to touch. I watched that part over. I kept rewinding it, and I really liked the look. It was Neil and the lead girl. Like, oh, what's the lead girl's name?
Fern, yeah.
Fern.
Yeah, so Fern and Neil, they're looking at each other, and she hits that button like, look, we're not gonna make it out of this. Why not do what we were told not to do and see what happens?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool scene. That was one of my
I did too.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things about the writing of the show is that, like, everything paid off. If you saw something earlier, the term is Chekhov's gun. And no, it's not a Star Trek reference. But the idea is if you introduce a plot device, it must pay off later in the story. So, like, you saw a giant gun at Akron. Then there's, right? What is it actually called?
At Atten.
Just think
no. The clone of their home world that they went to, that they had to, like, be child soldiers on.
That was AJ. That was at Canton.
Yeah.
That's a Northeast Ohio joke, Chris. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, anyway. Canton, Ohio?
Yeah. So Canton is next to Akron, and since he just said at Akron, I had to. Never mind.
Yeah. They went to the clone planet, and they saw that there was a giant, fucking gun on top of their school. So you're like, you just know that at some point when they get back home, they're going to use a giant fucking gun on top of their school, and they did. Right. It took until the season finale, but they did. First thing that 33 says is never push that button. And then what do they do in episode 6? They push the button.
The button. I think it's okay. Ed is like this sheltered planet. The parents are trying to shelter their kids, protect them from all evil. The kids leave home. They get a chance to see good, evil, danger, adventure, that sort of thing. It's kind of like a life lesson, right? It's like you just can't stay sheltered. I can't keep my daughter home until she's 35 years old. She's got to go out on her own eventually and figure shit out, And I think they kind of did a good job with the story writing. Like you said, they saw the gun at the top of the school. What did they do when they got home? They kind of used what they had seen in the outside world, brought it into their own home planet, and used it for their own good, for better.
Yeah,
right.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Like the whole thing just ties together so well. Like nothing seemed like they just shoehorned something in there. I mean, maybe the ending a little bit, like where he could just kind of like all right, I give up. Like, what the hell is that? You go through the whole goddamn show of like, you're never giving up. You got to get the treasure. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm done. Like, okay. I didn't like that, but everything else, like, it just seemed to fit so well. Like they would write little things in that would come back later, and it just worked just excellently. I love how they did it. I thought this was a very smart show in terms of the writing in that respect. So I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I had forgotten about seeing the gun earlier on top of the school earlier in the season. I had totally forgotten about that.
Now, what do you guys think of Jod? Because he's a really interesting character. Were you guys like me waiting for him to, like, my headcanon was not the cannon on top of the school, but my headcanon said that he was going to turn against his pirate cohorts in the finale to save the kids. When the kids were in like real peril from the pirates, he'd like switch sides, and be the hero at the end.
That's what you were waiting for.
Yeah, that's what I figured would happen.
Sure.
Because he we saw that he was a pirate, but he seemed to have some like genuine concern for the kids along the adventure. So yeah. I thought that when they were really threatened by his own group, he would turn on them and save the kids, and that didn't happen. So what do you think about that?
Well, I thought
we got the will he or won't he, and the answer is no, he won't.
Well, I thought first of all that whoever was writing these names, I think, had a stutter, because I think his name was supposed to be Jod Nawood, because we got Jod Nawood and then we got Atten. So I think whoever's writing it was supposed to be Jod Nawood and Atten, and so that's what I thought. But no, seriously, yeah, I thought the character was done really well, because I agree with you, AJ. Like up until the end, like you weren't sure how this was going to go down, because he did kind of flip flop. At one point he was being really good to the kids, and then all of a sudden it's all about the treasure, and then he's being good to the kids again. Like you're kind of on that teeter totter with him. So I thought that was really cool. I would say that my only complaint about it was, the guy's got the Force, like he's a Jedi or not, but he does have Force abilities. And I thought there were sometimes like it was kind of obvious he was in a spot where he could have used the Force ability but didn't. And I guess the finale kind of answered that, where he wasn't overly strong in the Force because he couldn't yank the lightsaber away from two people or whatever. And so I guess that's the explanation for it. But other than that minor little quibble, I thought it was great, because it was like you're in that gray area. Like what side is he on? And then you kind of find out at the end, like, he is kind of he's a good guy, but his love of treasure kind of outweighs the goodness. It's like, all right, if I can have treasure or be a good guy, no offense, good guy shit, I'm going to take the treasure.
Yeah, I feel like greed definitely took over. And in that finale episode, definitely power. Like he had control, He killed the machine, essentially running the city, and you could just see it in his eyes. He's like, "Wow, I have," and people are listening to him when he's telling them what to do. And so I think greed and power, and I think a little bit of fear of abandonment, because we finally find out, that he was with a Jedi, rescued by a Jedi, and he saw her die. I believe he said it was a female Jedi. He saw her die, and I think that might have left him broken and heartbroken. And at the end of the day, too, a scoundrel is a scoundrel. A pirate's a pirate. I don't know if you guys noticed this. I noticed this in a couple episodes earlier, but at the end, when the light went on and everything was white, man, his shirt was even the color of Lando's shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looked like Lando's shirt in a couple episodes, but when they shine the blue, the white light, it was like the light blue. I'm like, okay, is there a little tribute to Lando's, scoundrel side here as well? So that's kind of my take on that character. Mm-hmm. I loved the fact that we did see a lightsaber, we did see the Force, and we heard about the Jedi. I've said that many, many a times. That's enough to get me excited.
Yep.
Did you tweak the sound on that lightsaber, by the way, or was it just how invested I was in how it was used? But it seemed like they added like a little bit of bass rumble or something to it. It sounded a little more sinister than a usual lightsaber hum. And he never used it for good. He only ever used it to threaten kids, basically. So,
well,
like,
to me,
when that thing lit up, you're like, "Oh shit!" Like, this is a problem.
Yeah, Kale McLeish. If you could be kind or rich, choose rich. Nice. Yeah, Jacob Rossoff in the chat wanted to know: does Neil die in the finale? He almost does, but no, he does not.
He does get a lovely bubble bath for the second time in the series.
He does. Neil loves his bubble baths. But we always see elephants bathing in National Geographic documentaries, so that would make sense. That's another Easter egg.
Why you're bringing that up? That is the one thing that I'm not necessarily enjoying a lot of is these slice of life segments, like Andor. Everybody's fucking eating cereal and shit. Like we don't need to see that. We didn't see that in the original trilogy. We saw a little bit of the prequels, but we don't need to see people at home eating and drinking and taking baths and all that shit. I think that's not very Star Wars to me.
It's what Disney Plus loves. I mean, Mandalorian started it with the refresher. As soon as we get an acknowledgement that people go to the bathroom in a galaxy far, far away, then you're going to see them eating and drinking and bathing.
Too much detail. Too much fucking detail.
Dude, they have it in Outlaws. Like on your ship, the Trailblazer, one of the doors you can open is to the shitter, the refresher. You can't do anything in there. It's just you open the door and there's the refresher. I'm like, well, what's the point of this? Unless I can go in and chuck a space clinker, I don't need to see this. Like,
I do also love the name Refresher.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's not even spacey. It's just like, how do you feel when you're done taking a shit?
Yeah.
Refreshed.
Yeah. We call it the shitter, the poo doer. I should just see that because we call it the shitter. Yeah. I mean, I loved Jod because I love this idea of the character where when you got that backstory and I was thinking it was going to be, oh God, it's another Padawan or Order 66 survivor. And no, it sounded like he was found in the Imperial era by a Jedi in hiding. And so he had a rough life and he got like a couple months where a Jedi was teaching him a few things and then watched her get offed. So he took like, when he quoted Qui-Gon, for example, your focus determines your reality and, attachments, you don't need them. Like all these are Jedi teachings, but because he had a rough life and a bad upbringing because he was introduced to these ideas and then was shown how cruel the galaxy can be. Like he twisted them, he didn't approach it in like the Zen master way of like, oh, let go of attachments, and let's be one with the galaxy. It's like, no, attachments suck, man. Just be out for yourself. Like he took the no attachments thing as in be selfish. That's the way you get by in life. And, if you just focus on getting more shit, that is how you end up being a winner in life. So I love how they were able to take like snippets of Jedi teachings and apply it to a pirate's lifestyle. It was amazing. And I think what would happen is like if you get introduced to these things, especially as a kid, and your eyes are open, like, oh my God, this is cool. I'm going to learn all this stuff. And then you see like how badly that can go. Wouldn't you just raise a middle finger to the galaxy and be like, all right, I'm out for me now? Yeah. And I think they kind of show that with with the whole thing with Wolfman Jack in like the 6th or 7th episode. Like that's what I was calling the whatever that the pirate leader guy, the wolf dude.
Brutus.
But was it?
Come on, man, you're an Ohio State fan. You didn't remember Brutus?
I'm bad with the names, man. You know this.
Yeah, I'm super bad with the names.
Yeah,
I just 12 times.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but I think I think they even put that on display. He catches Brutus in that big claw, on the ramp of the ship, and he's basically this guy wants him dead, and he's got him there, and you're thinking, okay, like the Jedi thing to do if you follow the code and whatnot, you're not killing helpless people,
Yeah,
and
right.
But to follow the whole thing in Solo with Beckett and Han, they did the cool thing, which is this guy's my enemy. Guess what? I'm gonna put a lightsaber through his friggin' forehead. Like that was awesome. Like he's like, all right, this guy wants me dead, so I'm killing him. Like that was cool. So I that added to that gray area. And, you know, the whole sense of, you know, yeah, he's had the Jedi teachings. He's Force sensitive and can use the Force a little bit, but it doesn't follow that way of thinking. And so I thought that was awesome, you know, because it kind of, you know, it reinforced the whole pirate mentality and what he was really after. And again, I just said it, I'll say it again. I think it defines it well. It added to that gray area. And so I like that they did that, because that is not a Jedi thing to do. You know, but he did, like you said, he used the Qui-Gon line and all that kind of stuff. But then he also just offed one of his enemies when he was completely helpless.
I think there was a little bit of a power thing with that too, because I know the crew was more with Jude Law's character and not Wolfman Jack. And you saw that twice there. And I think it was feeding into his head with the power control. The way that you guys just described that character, I think that's why he did not help the kids at the end. Because that's truly who he was. Even though he had a little heart along the way, or was that really a scoundrel, you know, lying and kind of betraying the kids and not really giving a shit, because he turned his back on them quite easily, you know?
Yeah.
I think he's still in the gray area, though, because he would have had a much easier time with his grand plan once he reached the planet if he had just offed him. You know, he could have done awful things, but instead, the whole time he was so frustrated in that season finale of like, just do what I tell you and everyone's going to be fine. I'm not trying to destroy the barrier. I'm not trying to expose you to the galaxy. Just let me do my thing. You guys will be fine. I don't want you to do anything. He actually says, like, just do your normal life. Keep making money, not contacting the galaxy in any way, and everything will just go on as it is. I'll just be in charge.
Well, and he specifically says, I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Like he flat comes out and basically says, I'm not trying to like kill people here or hurt people. Just I want to be rich.
Yeah, he seemed like genuinely upset and frustrated by the fact that they kept on thwarting him, not because he was getting thwarted, but because like he's like, I'm going to have to do some things I really don't want to do if I want to put you down. So just don't fight me.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, dude.
Were you surprised that he did not die at the end?
I thought we would at least see him get arrested. I thought it was weird that they just left it like he's up there, but no one's coming after him that we know of. So maybe if there's a season 2, he's going to be like in hiding on the planet, or he'll find some way to escape. I don't know.
Yeah, that Chris, for me, I don't know if I was surprised so much, but I would say if I had to think about it, probably not, because he is a pretty cool character, and because of that gray area, I think there's a lot more you can do with him. So if you do want to have like a second season, I think having him there to build off of is pretty cool. You know, and I think there's much more there to explore. So if I had to think about it, I would say I'm probably not surprised, because they didn't want to Darth Maul the guy. Like if he turns out to be like insanely popular, and then they're like, oh crap, we offed him.
Right.
Like now all they've got is the Jod Nawood backstory.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. I feel like though when it was over, I felt like it wasn't one of those things where I'm like, okay, is there a season 2? They could have a season 2, but I felt like the way that they left it was like an end of a movie. Like, okay, there's a little bit of a ending feeling here. You guys say you didn't like the finale. Can I ask you why, or you don't want to get to that just yet?
I mean, we can talk about it.
Perfect segue. Yeah, JT, go for it.
It was a little anticlimactic, I think. It was like it ended, and I kind of went, okay. Again, like you know that they're going to get out of it. And there was tension, like I said. I mean, it's not like the whole thing like was just an inevitable march towards, okay, they win. But I just think it could have been. I think honestly, you know what kind of like was a bummer for me. I really thought that the barrier was an awesome concept. So I would have preferred if they'd have figured out a way to have the same resolution to everything, but not have it be, well, we have to just, it was just a little too simplistic for me to say, oh, well, we destroyed the barrier. You know, like I was like, I thought that was like a great concept. And so I was really hoping they would find some way to, you know, covertly override it or, you know, have, you know, Geordie LaForge or KB, you know, like do something to get the X-Wings through without having to destroy it. So I think for that reason, it was kind of a little bit of a bummer to me. Cause again, I just, something about the barrier to me was just so freaking cool. I'd never seen anything like that in Star Wars. I thought it was an awesome idea. Like it, you know, they were completely insular and no one knew that they were even there. And it was this mystical planet. And then they went and they took away all the mystery of it. Like, fuck the barrier. We got to get the X-Wings through. Like, you know, let's, you know, put the entire planet at risk for this little couple mile square patch of city where the pirate ship happens to be. So the rest of the planet, F you. We got to save our own asses. So let's destroy the barrier. Like, so other, you know, and so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, other than that, I mean, it was okay. I mean, there really wasn't a good way to do that, I suppose. And again, the other thing was I just felt like Jod kind of gave up. Like the whole show, he was like absolutely refusing to give in. Like, I got to get this treasure. And then all of a sudden a few X-Wings come down and he's like, it was like Jar Jar at the Battle of Naboo. Like, I give up. Like, he just all of a sudden out of nowhere, he's like, yeah.
No surrender, Jar Jar. We shall think of something.
We shall think of something. I give up. Like, it was kind of like, really? Just kind of, you know, so I think AJ's description of like a wet fart is kind of apropos there. Like, because it really was like, the guy just stands there. He's like, he's done. I was like, really? You got a blaster.
Yeah,
like,
he did just get stupid in that finale, didn't he? Like, it would have been pretty easy to win, and he just made all the wrong choices.
Just start wiping him out. Like, what's the kid going to do with the lightsaber? He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Just shoot him in the face. Like, oh, you got a lightsaber? That's not really going to help you. Like, it might help me, but it's not going to help you. Just blow them all away and be like, all right, back to the plan here. Like, but
hell, if his plan was for them to just keep making money and having him be in charge, why did you send your ship down to start just randomly shooting up the suburbs?
Yeah,
you didn't need to. You could have just been like, hey, they're going to come in, they're going to take the money. Don't mess with them. Everything's fine. But as soon as you start gunning down civilians, yes, now they're going to fight you.
Start blowing shit up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that was a little unnecessary, right?
And if the whole thing is around, okay, dude's holding a lightsaber. See, damn it, now you're making me like shit on my own favorite show. But
right.
if that lever that's going to like take down the barrier is the problem, and you've got a lightsaber, cut off the lever so no one can pull the damn thing.
Right,
there you go.
Right. Look at Chastity. Holy 90s flashback, Batman. Geordie LaForge, wrong franchise, John. Oh, I'm aware, Chastity. I just, you know, I think all of us who like Trek as well as Star Wars kind of saw her at first.
We're sympathetic. I've got my LaForge bear back there. That's
so
a double Star Trek Easter egg. That's from Lower Decks referencing Next Generation. So
some reading Rainbow. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be funny if they did that? Just do like the actual real world stuff instead of the Star Wars thing. Like they're like, oh well, that lever that totally, you know, will blow up the barrier, and then you're screwed, John. And he just walks over at the lightsaber, is like, whick, cuts off the lever, and they're like, shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the dad's just sitting there behind the computer, going, God damn it, now what? Like, it's like, all right, okay, we're kind of screwed. Like, just do that.
John, I think you make a good point too. It's like, yeah, there's a little bit of issues with some of this, even though, like you said, AJ, the writing was great. And when there's a problem, like the barrier, for example, they just kind of threw out the security of it out the window. But you know what? What is an easy way to do that, to wrap up the show?
No, I agree. That's the one thing I always think of, like when people say, "Oh, that sucked." I'm like, well, then what would you have done?
How would you do it different, right? Well,
yeah,
I don't know how you would. You know, I really don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, keep the barrier somehow. And by the way, the other thing about the barrier, it protects the whole goddamn planet. But one wide open lever is the key to. I mean, God damn it. I mean, the Nostromo and Alien, you have to have like 18 different codes to blow the goddamn ship up, but to protect the whole planet in Star Wars, it's one damn lever.
It's such a science trope, like science fiction trope, or Star Trek has the same problem where like they go from planet to planet, and yet it's just this one little tiny area. This one little like half a suburb apparently speaks for the entire planet. Like you said, my God, these 4 square miles are under attack right now. Well,
so
let's just expose the whole planet. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Can you imagine being like, okay, so if we're like in that suburb right now, I'd love to know what Kale would think. Like he's just going about his day, on the opposite side of the planet, and then all of a sudden the barrier's gone. He's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah,
like,
God damn it.
I was waiting for the kid to pull the lever and sacrifice his dad for that. I was kind of, but I don't think Disney was going for the dark side of the show.
I thought when they were getting into a tug of war with the lightsaber that Jod was going to pull them and the saber towards him, and they would turn on the saber.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna die by yanking the saber towards him, because speaking of callbacks, when Wim first activated the saber in the 5th episode in the treasure room, and he had it upside down and it had it all wrong. So it would be a callback like, oh, I know which end points out this time. And he would,
That'd be awesome. He does it backwards. He just gores himself. That's how they get Wim out of the way. He's like, I've got the lightsaber. Whoa! Like it's just, there goes
We've
Wim.
seen stuff like that in Star Wars movies before, but this, John, it took me the 4th episode or maybe the 3rd episode. Going back to the top of the show, you were saying you felt like it was a little too kiddish. I felt the same way. I got over that just like you did, but I was like, yeah, you know what? Is this? I kept yelling at my daughter in the other room. I'm like, you never saw Star Wars. You should be seeing this now,
Yeah.
I mean, she saw Jedi and she saw Empire, and but I felt like this would have been good for a 10-year-old like my daughter, because it's much more relatable on that level. Even though it's a throwback, right? Stuff that we love. It's a throwback to our childhood, a smidge, a throwback to the Goonies a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, that's what made it enjoyable. But at the same time, we didn't get a lot of that dark stuff. We didn't really get any deaths like that were over the top, like we saw in other projects. And I think I kind of missed that. Again, that's what I love about Rogue One. Everybody fucking dies in that film.
Wouldn't it be great if
shooting Brutus in the head? Shooting Brutus in the head when he's already entirely captive to that like loading claw.
Yeah, that was kind of brutal. Yeah, that was kind of brutal for sure.
Especially right in front of the kids.
They should have just ended it. They should have done the Rogue One ending to this one. Like everyone's all happy as much as you can, but then one by one they knock the kids off. Like you knock off one kid, everyone's like, what?
The planet blows up.
Yeah, all of a sudden Neil's in the turbo laser, and it just blows up with him in there. You're like, what the hell is happening? Like KB crashes in the ship, but actually crashes. You see the big explosion, and at the end, like she comes sliding down on the credits, but it's like she's actually like she croaked
corpse.
And then, yeah. Oh,
so Wim has to survive though. Wim has to survive and go off with Jod to become a pirate, because he's going to be like, oh, I see what you were talking about. Yeah, let's do it this way.
Man, you weren't kidding. This world sucks. Let's go pirate
the
shit.
Jedi away. You had it right the whole time. Sorry, bud.
Did they get Jod's character name because Jude Law did like, okay, go online and take this. What's your Jedi name quiz? God.
Wouldn't that be awesome? You can name yourself. You can name your character Jude Law, and he's like, well, I don't know how to make a Star Wars. So he just goes and does the random Star Wars name generator.
Yeah.
And it comes up Jod Nanawood. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, do that with everybody.
So one of the things we all agree on is it was cool to have like an entirely like detached story, right? Like this, I think this is a great jumping on point for Star Wars, which is nice.
Yeah.
Now, because of that, though, we got a whole bunch of new stuff in this show. What was your favorite like idea or new thing introduced to Star Wars lore that Skeleton Crew did?
New thing introduced to Star Wars lore.
Yeah, so we've got like these 9 planets that were mints of the Old Republic. We've got, just aliens in general, or more stuff about the pirates. Jod's backstory of like Jedi pupil turned pirate. Like what new thing to Star Wars was your favorite?
I would probably say that, that Jod. Well, I don't know if that's new. Right? Is it new? I don't know. You can answer that. I thought Jod's character was cool because he had he had the lightsaber. He had the Force. He was able to use the Force. We didn't know if he was a Jedi. We found out that he wasn't necessarily trained, but learned, and then still went his own way without necessarily going to the dark side, because he's more of a pirate / scoundrel than he is a Sith Lord, if that makes any sense. I did like that, but I don't know if that's necessarily new lore, if you will. But I really enjoyed that element. I don't believe, okay, we got a new Star Wars story, but again, we got lightsabers, the Force, and X-Wing fighters. And my friend who's a B-Wing fanatic, he must have had the biggest hard-on at the end of the show. I enjoyed all the little old shit coming back into the new shit. I really enjoyed that element of it. So we didn't really get something 101% new because we had all those old elements. And I think that's what scares me about the future of Star Wars. I think I prefer to have some of that old shit. They're quoting, like you said, Qui-Gon. There's throwbacks to what we've seen before. I think you need a little bit of that without going crazy with the fan service, Went off on a tangent there. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. By the way, we have an awesome debate going on in the chat. Since I brought up Geordie LaForge, now the chat is debating who would win in a fight, Chewbacca or Worf. So
I love this.
That's our chat is the best, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's awesome. You know what it was for me. I love the supervisor. I like the concept that a droid is running the planet. It's like, and I think the reason I like it is because I don't think we've really seen, at least in stuff that I've watched, and I haven't seen everything, so maybe this is already out there. But we've seen like the Matrix and Terminator, where machines take over and it's this apocalypse. Whereas this one with the supervisor, it's like peaceful and, let's have the barrier and let's just make sure everybody's safe and nothing bad happens and everyone gets along. Like I thought that was awesome. Like when the supervisor turned out to be just a giant droid, it was like, I was like, that is badass. Like I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. It was unique. Yeah. And it was different. And it was like, okay, yeah, I can see this working,
Yeah. And it was
I was surprised by that. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like a Wizard of Oz situation where, yeah, there's the droid is the obvious call, but I thought that it would tie in somehow with what was the legendary pirate whose face we didn't see in the Hollow? Tack Renard, I think.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they got that Hollow of the legendary pirate captain, and his face was all obscured. So like I thought for sure that we were going to find out more about that guy in the finale, like he was tied to the planet somehow. And nope, just a droid being nice to people, I guess.
Yeah,
whatever.
I just thought that was so cool. It was such a what I really liked about it was that when it didn't turn out that it was just like a droid, like just like the security droids were just spewing rant, like, oh, you are being watched. Like there wasn't any personality to it. I loved with the supervisor where it was like, okay, well, either you're lying about being an emissary or you're lying about this. Like, what is it? Like, so it was like you could tell it was actually somewhat sentient, which I thought was really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And then I mean, as simple as it is, like the fact that he just did the lightsaber stab. Like, throw again, an Easter egg throwback, Chris, to your point about going back to old stuff, kind of like how they, Qui-Gon put the lightsaber through the security door, on the,
totally,
on the space station in episode 1, like he did that and that killed the supervisor. I was like, okay, as obvious as that is, that's pretty sweet that they did that, because it kind of is like pointing out like, okay, didn't you dickheads think that this thing would be a little easy to destroy?
Yeah,
just
right, right.
just basically put its eye out and it's dead. Like, I mean, like, what the hell? So yeah, I just thought that was a great concept. Like, because you're waiting for the supervisor to be this, like, I was like, okay, is this a character we've already seen? Like, do we know who this character is? Like, is it going to be like, one of the Jedi or something that survived or whatever? Like, is it Cal Kestis, or somebody like that? Like, but no, it's just this giant circular droid. And I thought that was really cool. It was a very interesting twist, and I thought it was great. I really enjoyed that. What about you,
I thought
AJ?
it was interesting. So I thought it was interesting because they're an old Republic mint, right? That was the whole thing. This money hasn't been seen in centuries because it's old Republic money, and that hasn't existed for hundreds of years. And yet it knew about Order 66. So I thought that was a little strange. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. So any government calling itself anything Republic, you're like, I'm down with. But then they started calling themselves the Empire, and now you've lost the plot, basically.
Right.
Like, because it's old Republic money. So clearly this planet was established centuries ago, maybe thousands of years ago. And it still was like, it knows about like the last 50 years. So, all right. I thought that it was going to come out that like the supervisor droid or whatever wouldn't have even known what happened in the galaxy for a very long time. I didn't realize that it was still getting updates from outside the barrier up till very recently, apparently, in the grand scheme of things. I thought that was weird. And I thought it was also surprising that the adults were like, yeah, we know we're run by a robot. We're good with it.
Yeah. That was kind of cool.
It's a cool concept, though. Yeah, because usually the obvious thing is, what Trek always does, which is like, rebel against the machine. We don't want to be run by a computer. But instead they're like, no, this is fine. Life is good here. We're just going to keep on keeping on. That's cool.
Yeah. Right. I think that might have been one of my, and I, bringing up something new and also bringing up, going back to something that Chris, you had said, you said you don't like the little slice of life segments. I think for the first episode, it was a little off-putting to me to see like AJ and I said this when we talked about the first two episodes, when we talked about the show a few weeks ago. It was a little off-putting to see like tree lawns, and like it looked like the neighborhood from E.T. or whatever, and it looked a little too close to Earth-y.
Yes.
I was like, okay, like, because I mean, you don't always have to have everything be like a space planet, and all made of metal and whatever. Like, you don't always have to do that, but I think there's a way to balance it. And I got used to it as the show went on. But I think at first it was a little bit like, what the shit is this? Like,
yeah,
okay, like, you got the old lady walking her dog, so to speak, and
right.
I mean. It was that was a little
kids
weird.
Are going to school,
Yeah, exactly. Kids are, yeah. I mean, it was like, okay, well, this is interesting. So I think that was, but again, I got used to it. I mean, I think for the context of the show, it works. But I think if you were to kind of like put that into other properties, it would kind of be like, are we like would we see Andor going on vacation to what looks like Daytona Beach or some shit?
We did.
I know,
totally went to Miami.
Well, yes, but I mean, even that looked a little more space-y than the neighborhoods in Skeleton Crew did. So it's like, I mean,
I don't know, a Hispanic dude hanging out in Miami getting profiled. That sounds pretty on the nose to me.
The views of the Nerf Murder Council don't necessarily reflect those of the Cantina Network. Yeah, see, Nick Hall says it. He says, too close to home for a galaxy far, far away. Yeah, There is truth to that for sure. It's
even down to the alien design. Like, as much as I love Neil as a character, he's just a blue elephant with a toupee. Brutus is just a wolf man. Kim is just an owl without a beak. Like, the alien design is getting less and less creative, and this is a trend overall. Though, I mean, it's the same thing in. God, I hate to bring up Star Trek again, but now they've got just straight up like bird people, and or cat people. Like they're like, what if we just made like an anthropomorphic house pet and then changed one feature? Okay, good. Now it's an alien.
I feel like when Neil's mom spoke, I was like
even Neil's dad had tusks. Like, come on, man. We know he's an elephant already, but shit. Get a little bit more creative than that, please.
I thought it would have been kind of cooler if Neil had like, old school Star Wars dialect with the subtitles. I thought that where the kids understand.
Yes. I like that. Yeah.
When his mom spoke, I was like, that does not look like the voice coming out of that thing.
Now that you mention it, Chris, that's an awesome idea, because I think that would have taken away some of the a little too close to home, as Nick phrased it in the chat. Like, I think that would have taken a little bit of that away if you had like the old school subtitles and they're speaking like, some foreign elephant language or something, Yeah,
the kids understand them because they're friends with them. We don't need to go into that backstory.
Yeah.
It's already been easily established,
Chris, you've seen the Star Wars Robot Chicken specials, right?
I have, but I don't know if I've seen them all. There's quite a few, isn't there?
Have you seen the one with Max Rebo getting to the gig after like Max Rebo getting to eat like a gig after the skiff was blown up? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I believe it's been a long time. It's been a long time.
I so wanted Neil's dad to have that Max Rebo voice. Like, the mom's talking all nice, and then his dad comes in for work. He's like, "Man, I had such a bad day at work, man. I need some dinner, man. What's going on, kids?" Like, I would have. Oh my God, I want someone to overdub that so bad, because that Max Rebo voice from Robot Chicken I will fucking lose it every time I see that.
Yeah, I gotta go back and watch it.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah, he walks into the canteen and he's like, and they basically like they booked up he had a gig, like he was like a traveling musician or something, and they rebooked him because he was late. And he's like, "Man, I walk all the way across the desert, man. I got a gig, man." It was so great.
They gave him like the Louis Armstrong voice, basically.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh, yeah, yep, there it is, Kale. "I dragged my ass across the desert, man, but I did it. Oh, they took my gig, man." It's like, and every time I see Max Rebo now, that's all I can picture. I watched Return of the Jedi a couple weeks ago, and I just see him plinking away on the piano, and I'm hearing him going, A sharp, G sharp, man, play the piano, man. Speaking out of my head. I can't stop thinking about that. That stupid voice. Oh my gosh.
So
anyway,
good.
All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So
no, I love this. I love the idea of the planet, though. Like, so the whole time I was watching this show, I couldn't help but compare it to the Acolyte, because we did our Acolyte talk, and boy, I just never want to think anything Acolyte ever again. Like that, I told you before, man, that on paper sounds like a great story. That as a viewing experience was excruciating. like how I said earlier, Chris, about how like, oh, it was actually fun being agonized for 7 days. Like I got to wait 7 days. Instead of with the Acolyte, for me, it was like, oh God, only 6 more days. Oh God, there's only 5 more days. And then I have to watch it again. Oh, like it was painful, but they both that show and this show were based around a mystery, right? I feel like this one did it right, where, they would unravel it a little bit. You get a little bit of meat on that bone every week. And then they'd like dangle every answer led to another question, right? As like a good mystery does, kept you guessing until the end. And the Acolyte, I feel like, just what was so different, because we've all seen both of them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what was so different between the way they presented their mysteries that this one was fun to be left in the dark week to week versus the Acolyte, which I feel like absolutely was not.
Well, the Acolyte was not a fun show. Even, if you liked it, it wasn't a fun show, where this was a fun adventure. So I think maybe that could be a big difference. And I felt like, too, the Acolyte was choppy, where I felt this, maybe your observation with it being one adventure per episode that kind of wrapped itself up. I felt like it was a smoother presentation of the mystery, if you will. You know, where
That's a
Acolyte
great
was,
description.
Yeah.
you know, was kind of choppy, and you know, it wasn't fun. It was like a dark, confusing mystery. I guess how I would describe that. You know.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. See, I like the Acolyte. I don't have nearly as big a problem with it as a lot of people do. I am of the belief that they should have continued with it and not kowtowed to dumb internet fanboy pressure. Because I think if you had provided more story exposition in like a second season, I think it would have been better. You know, I think there was more there to explain.
Yeah, AJ, I hate to be the odd man out here with John, but I did enjoy the Acolyte. I get people's reason why they did not like it. I do think that was a cop-out that they did not do season 2. I don't even know if that's the truth or if that's just what they told the media. But I think that makes it more of a difficult watch because I was waiting for something where Skeleton Crew felt like when I was waiting, I got what I was waiting for. Kind of like you said, everything paid off. Whereas the Acolyte kept waiting, saw Yoda at the very end. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to season 2. And then there's not a season 2. And I said, at one time, I said the biggest failure of the Acolyte is going to be if they do not have a season 2. And at the end of the day, it failed pretty heavily based on the nail in the coffin there, you know?
Yeah. Nick Hall says, Acolyte was setting up for Plagueis and just fell flat along the way. Yeah, I think I really think that show was meant to have multiple seasons. So I think that it was written the way it was purposely because let's face it. I said this on our Acolyte episodes before, and I will die on this hill. You're not showing Plagueis in the cave, even if it's just for like 3 seconds. You're not finally bringing Plagueis into live action just to show him in the shadows in a cave and go, oh, okay, shut up, fanboys. There's your Plagueis. Now let's move on. Like, you're not doing that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Talking about, again, how you got to like pay off anything you introduce. Yeah. There was no payoff.
So I think Acolyte was written specifically to have multiple seasons. It was a more broad story that they were going to tell. But again, it got shut down by the goddamn idiots on social media screaming that it's woke and screaming about, you know, the lesbian space witches or whatever. And it's like, for me, it's difficult to compare because Skeleton Crew, you guys nailed it. It does pay off. You know, each episode pays off. It's a nice, tightly wrapped story within the 8 episodes. And again, leaving Jod alive kind of does leave it open for, hey, we can do another season if we want to, because this guy's alive and the kids are alive. So we've got everybody in place on AT-AT, and let's see what happens, you know? So I think they can do that. I mean, but I don't think it was written necessarily, you know, to set up a season 2. Whereas I think the Acolyte was definitely part 1 of a broader story.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it might be a little
nailed
more loose.
the title of season 2, episode 1 of Skeleton Crew, which is what's happening on AT-AT.
Hey, here's the thing for you guys to do on the weekends or whenever you do your drinking. Go back and watch, I think, episode maybe 5. And the drinking, every time they say AT-AT, you have to drink.
Oh, God.
Fucking shit-faced. I didn't know it, but I was like, oh, my God, they are loving saying that fucking word right now.
All right, so you just signed your death warrant, man, because what now we're going to do, Chris, we're going to set up a WTF Friday, which is our off shows on Fridays we do occasionally. And we're going to do that drinking game. We're going to do a watch along for that episode. And we're going to do that drinking game. So every time they say AT-AT, and you got to fill a shot glass with beer, or if you want to do straight shots, go for it. But yeah, you have to, that would be an awesome watch along. Like, son of a bitch, I said it again.
Yeah, there we go. They must have said it 30 fucking times. I swear to God.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I was like, oh, we get it. AT-AT. Come on. All right. Fine. Cool. Like,
it is interesting how both shows went about it differently. Like, to your point, Chris, about the Acolyte being definitely a multi-season story. Like I said, you don't just throw 3 seconds of Plagueis into a shot to say that like that it's paid off already. Like, No, you don't do that. Like
That's a cheap
Plagueis
trick,
had no
right?
Plagueis had no
Yeah.
purpose
Nice.
in this story yet. So
Yeah.
clearly it was just dangling that carrot to say, and Yoda to say it's going to pay off, later. I think the way that, like we were talking about earlier, how this conclusion, the finale ended up basically like a wet fart kind of. I feel like that was the one episode that just kind of like stopped. Like I was
Yeah.
expecting like a denouement where it shows like life getting back to normal. What's life like on At-Aten now that they're no longer behind the barrier and part of the larger galaxy and all that kind of stuff. And we got none of that.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I feel like that was the way that this show said, okay, we'll pick this up in season 2,
Yeah.
but what if they don't get a season 2? So do you feel like this was a satisfying conclusion, or do you feel like the Acolyte, we were robbed of future chapters that are necessary to make these make sense
I say this
or pay off
finale,
at least?
this finale to me left me complete. As much as I loved Kenobi, I know AJ, you were not a fan, but John, to me, I was like, okay, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. It left me hanging. Acolyte left me hanging. This one, I was like, you know what? That was a great fucking story. I could have seen this in the theater play out like a movie, beginning, middle, end. But at the same time, there are some unanswered things, or there's still everybody's alive, where they can go on to a season 2 if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it didn't feel like, oh, fuck, there's got to be a season 2, that was comforting for me that I didn't have that feeling. And
The writers have said they've got ideas for 2, but they didn't want to write themselves. They didn't want an Acolyte problem, is my paraphrase. Like they didn't want to have season 1 hinge upon future seasons.
Yeah, I could.
Because they weren't guaranteed any more than one, but they definitely left openings and have ideas of where they could pick up the story.
And with that statement that you made, I feel like this is a big experiment that Disney has been doing for years. And, why don't they just say, this is what we're doing, take it or leave it? Obviously, they've done a little bit of that already.
Yeah.
But this, I feel like it's almost like we're a test market for what they think they want to do. I don't like that element of it. Because George, he did whatever the fuck he wanted to do. The critics destroyed episode 1. He didn't throw in a towel. Everybody cut down on the merchandising, for Attack of the Clones and Sith. But he played it out, and then he's like, you know what? I can't take anymore. I've been criticized by critics and fans. Yes, this did happen back in the day. I think that essentially led him to not wanting to do anymore. I think he might have even said that. But Disney has to shit or get off the pot. They got to do what they want to do or don't do it at all. Like, who gives a fuck what the fans think? To a degree, right? You have to please the fans, but at the same time, don't cancel Acolyte because fucking social media. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I completely agree with that. And if these shows were written, by the way, our good buddy Sherrick is tuning in. Great to see you, man. He says, I love Skeleton Crew. I feel they wrapped this season up nicely. Hoping for a season 2. Hope you fellas are doing well. Same to you, man. Hopefully I see you soon. I'll be in Lima coming up here in the next few months. So, I would say that with this one, I mean, you AJ, you mentioned like an Acolyte problem. I think had these shows been written further apart from each other, I think you could make a case to say they wrote Skeleton Crew based on the reaction that they got to Acolyte. They wanted it more able to be wrapped up in one season in case it wasn't well received, whatever, or, they wanted to make sure that it was successful before moving on. But they're written pretty close together because, Acolyte came out last year and this one came out a few months afterwards, whatever. So, they were in production at the same time. I think there's that aspect of it. And Chris, you had said, fuck what the fans think and all that. And I think I agree with that completely. I hate the fact that, Acolyte went the way of Solo. You know, I mean, because that's what happened to Solo. Oh, well, the fans are crapping on the sequels. And so because they didn't like The Last Jedi, it only made like $500 million. So we're canceling movies now. It's like, God damn it. Seriously? Like, is that what we're going to do now? Like, we're just going to listen to a bunch of whiny dickheads online to determine whether or not we're going to continue with this stuff. I mean, I hate that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm with you. Just do what you're going to do and put it out. I mean, if the fans like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But, you know, stick to your guns. Like, you know, to your point, George Lucas never cared. And I think something I think I can speak for you on this. One of the things that we love about George Lucas is that, you know, he did say, I don't give a shit. I'm making these movies. I like them, so I'm making them.
Yeah.
You know, he did say, like, you know, I don't care if you don't like the prequels. I want to tell the story. So screw you. I'm making the movies. Like, I like that. And I wish they would kind of have that outlook with this, but it looks like apparently someone's a little bit weak-kneed, you know, here and there with the Disney right now.
It is interesting how they go both ways, isn't it? Like, on one hand, they say they're taking shots. They're letting different creators make whatever they want to make and seeing how it goes. So yeah, The Acolyte is a different take on the Star Wars universe. Skeleton Crew is different, and so on and so on. Like, so they're letting a whole bunch of new creative voices come into the room, but then if it doesn't pull the numbers, then yeah, we're pulling the plug. And they're not committed to anything long term. The only long term commitment Disney has made with Star Wars was we're making 7, 8, and 9. And that's it. Outside of that, everything else has been, if it works, we'll do more of it. And if it doesn't, you're done.
Yeah.
And I wish that they would pick a direction, be just to say, like, yeah, we want new creative voices. Okay, well, then when they do something that the audience doesn't immediately gravitate to, then have the courage to say, we're going to stick with it.
Yeah. Nick Hall in the chat makes a good point, by the way. He says, tell a contained good story and leave an overarching story to tell. I mean, that's a good way to. That's a good way to phrase
so many great franchises, TV franchises, movie franchises, whatever, where the first attempt wasn't the best, and then they had more attempts and they got better. Like most TV shows, if you watch season 1, it's not the best season. It's by far not the best season. It takes 2 or 3 seasons sometimes for the writers to find the characters and you know, really hit their peak.
Yeah.
And for these people to have to come out the gate and nail it right away is like that's such a high bar. It's no wonder that most shows fail on streaming after a single season.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, give it some time, develop the show. Every season gets better. Sometimes you have too many seasons. Walking Dead goes on on and on and on and on. You start losing people. You know, I mean, everything's got to come to an end. But, you know, canceling these shows before they even, you know, have a chance.
Season 1 of the Clone Wars. How good was that?
Oh God, was it? I know, Chris, you're not a fan of the animated stuff, and
I've never seen season 1 of the Clone Wars.
Oh God,
but you can terrible. At least admit in your limited knowledge, it probably got better than it started, right? Like the animation improved, the writing improved, everything got better because people had more time with it and they were just better at their jobs. Period.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, John, how many albums are like that too, right? The first album and then the 10th album. It's like, you know, it's art. Yeah. It takes a while to get to that point, you know.
And it seems that things seem to find their footing a few seasons or albums in. You know, how many times you look at a band, you're like, oh, their 3rd or 4th record is like the peak. You know, it's very, very rarely. You know, I mean, even you know, I'm a huge Dream Theater fan, and people are like, you know, they say, oh, you know, Images and Words, their debut record, it's like their best. Like, well, no, technically it's their 2nd record. You know, so it's like that's not the first, and they had a year and a half between. They didn't even have a singer, and they just sat on these songs for a year and a half to perfect them and hone them to make them just absolutely perfect. It wasn't like they did the first record and then puked out the second one and onward they went, you know? So, yeah, I mean, it's a very, very good point.
And in Disney's case, like if they want Star Wars to succeed as a franchise, all right, The Mandalorian, if we had to rank the seasons, I think I would rank them in descending order. I think 1 was better than 2, 2 was better than 3. every other streaming show that they've done is usually the same. I'll actually put the animation as different. Like I think the Bad Batch might have bucked that trend.
Season 2 is the best of Bad Batch, I think.
Right. So in that case, but yeah, they haven't stuck with anything. We're getting like one of this, one of that, one of this, one of that, and all this smattering of stuff, but it's not sustaining the franchise. It's not building a framework that we can build upon and like live with these characters for a while, like the trilogies did. So at some point they're going to have to say, this is good. And this is the trunk of our tree. And now we'll branch out from here. It's like they're trying to do that with the Mandalorian kind of, but even that, like season 3 was the more they tried to make it integrated with the rest of the Star Wars galaxy, I feel like the worse the Mandalorian became. And now we get weird stuff like we're going to do the Mandalorian and Grogu as the next movie. That just that to me is like a Caravan of Courage, where it's like a made for TV movie.
Jesus.
Instead it's like a made for streaming movie. No, I'm not saying that like it's as bad as that. I mean, like they took a TV show that was popular and said, how do we make more money off of this? Let's put it in theaters.
Because that had, overall, aside from Andor, that probably had the most praise, the most love.
Yeah.
From the fans, because it was different until it had that crossover with, the Boba Fett character and Ahsoka and all that. So are they doing that? They might be leaning back on the safety of what they think is going to be successful. Before we get too far off the track, and this is your show, not mine by any means. I don't want to control like that. But at the end credits of Skeleton Crew, I watched a lot of it, but not all of it. I noticed that there was some really cool, maybe a little bit more abstract drawing that featured what appeared to be Jedi Knight characters. Did you guys catch that?
Yes.
I did not. I have to admit, I'm a huge. By the way, I need to retract a statement. When I thought about it after I said it, Bad Batch season 2 is not the best season, so I would need to go back and look at that. No, I actually have been very famous on the show for absolutely ridiculing the shit out of the closing credits of these goddamn Disney Plus shows, because like if you see the episodes like 38 minutes, it's actually more like 27 minutes, and there's 11 minutes of credits, and you have to have like the Zimbabwean fucking translation at the end. Like, what is going on here? So I did not. I noticed it was a little different at the end. There was some artwork, but I was like, that artwork, blah. I watched the show. Okay, cool. So yeah, I did not notice that. So. It
was the Jedi, the people holding the lightsaber. Did you know what that was? I did not.
Oh,
I think
Jeff
it was,
Caffrey, actually.
The stories? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what Caffrey
Jeff
said right
Caffrey,
here.
good to see you, man. Jeff Caffrey says those images in the credits were from Wim's pad thingy.
Okay.
Yeah, like when he was reading stories, that was the artwork that was in them. Exactly. But I did notice that one of those images had like them in it. So it's like they are now part of the lore, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Like their adventure is now a story that other people will tell, kind of a thing, which is really cool. What pissed me off though is, much like a Marvel movie where they'll do these like fancy credits and then they will cut to a mid-credit scene and then roll basic credits after that.
Yeah.
So they did all that artwork stuff. It was very much the Marvel credit scene kind of thing. And then it pulls out, onto a display. So now we're looking at like real world, like we had just viewed this on a monitor, and then roll regular credits. I'm like, you were setting up for some sort of a coda that never happened. Right. I was so pissed. Because as soon as I saw like, oh wait, we're pulling out from a TV screen and now we see that this is all like on a little viewport. Oh, what's coming? Because like I said, it felt like there wasn't that typical conclusion that showed like how the characters live their lives from now on and all that, finale kind of stuff. So I thought that we were going to get some sort of a stinger or something at that point that would show what comes next. We got none of it. Such a bait and switch.
How many times did you guys think about Anakin going into the Jedi Temple here with Jod and these kids? was waiting for him to kill a youngling. Even though we know that it wasn't the direction that Disney was taking it, because it would have just been too dark. It would have killed it.
He was so direct, though. He's like, look, you know what I'm going to do with this thing, okay? And I'm glad I know what your parents look like now, because I'm going to carve them up. And he even goes on. He's like, slowly, piece by piece. Like, he was menacing. And he did none of it.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting, I thought, because you're like, okay, is he going to, like, again, you know the kids are going to get out of it, but the parents, I really wondered when the parents got involved in the finale if they were going to end up being cannon fodder, basically. You know, like, are they going to get slaughtered in front of the kids?
I was a little surprised that not one person had died, aside from Wolfman Jack, as you say. You know, right. One of the kids, one of the adults. I was, because we've seen that before. This was like I don't know. It was a little disappointing that somebody did not die.
Yeah, to me, I guess it makes sense, because you know it is a little more on the kid side of things.
Yeah, sure.
I guess you don't want to get these kids all invested in 8 episodes, and the halfway through the finale, all of a sudden you're murdering the shit out of somebody, you know, like just giving them nightmares. 7.5 episodes into 8 episodes, you know, like.
That's a good point.
Jeff Caffrey says, I was expecting something more from Jod at that point. It was, I don't know, man. Like I say, I didn't know what he was going to do. Like, because again, with knowing that the kids have to survive, you're like, okay, what can they do? So that's again, is that kind of tension that I talked about earlier in the show that they did a great job of building. You're like, okay, what is going to happen? You know, and because, you know, he says, you know, at the end of the 7th episode, when he's like, now I know who to carve up with the lightsaber or whatever, or, you know, what he shows the lightsaber. But then at the beginning of episode 8, he's being cool to the parents. Oh, hi, I'm your emissary. Yay. Right. Like, look at me. I'm the emissary. Woohoo. I'm here to help. You know, so you're like, wait, what the hell's going on here? You know, like, so, yeah, it was definitely interesting to, you know, have that kind of uncertainty.
He was a player for sure. He was a player for sure.
And I forget which one you guys made. I think it was you, Chris. They made the point earlier. Like, you didn't know if he was going to help the kids or sell the kids out in that last episode, because you're like, okay, which way is it going to go?
Yeah, right.
So I thought that was awesome too. Like, it kept you wondering the whole time, which I thought was really, really good.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? I think overall, too, what Disney seems to do, maybe you could disagree with this, AJ. I feel like overall there is a sense, there's a feel of Star Wars, a look of Star Wars, and a sound of Star Wars in all these productions across. Even though the stories might have flaws to some, I still feel like they do their best keeping it feeling like it is a Star Wars movie. The music's always good in all these shows. I enjoy them, at least anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny. They were in John was in the room after he killed the, what did you say, John? The main robot that was running the city?
Oh, the supervisor, yeah.
Yeah, the supervisor. And they had like the light panels in there. And I'm like, you know, it looks like Star Wars, but they're missing the good and plenty lights, you know, like those round lights.
The good and plenty lights.
And then, of course, at the end, you see John close up, and sure enough, there was a good and plenty light right behind him. I'm like, you could take that screen grab and post that, and it was like, this is what Star Wars looks like, you know?
God damn you. See, now it's good. There's another thing. Every time I see Max Rebo, I'm going to hear the voice, man. And now whenever I see those lights, I'm going to think of good and plenties. Damn it. Somebody
in the 501st had designed some of those for one of the 501st sets. And I'm like, yeah, you make those Star Wars lights? She's like, you mean the good and plenty lights? I'm like, yeah.
That's so accurate, man.
Yep.
That's so accurate.
So that's one thing actually right there. Like, I love all the little stuff that they seeded throughout and didn't make a big deal of it. Like when they, got to the top of the supervisor's tower and there's all those stations and they had chairs and they were covered in layers of dust. So they did such a great job of like world building, right? Like, obviously someone at some point had a station there. There was a job to do in that tower and it hasn't been done in a very long time.
Yeah,
I love that because like instantly my imagination is just like, oh my God, like what was life like on this planet when that was built? Like, what was the purpose of that? Who sat at that station? What happened if they push that button? Like that's what Star Wars has always done so well, to give you to your point about, the Star Wars feel.
Yeah, for sure.
This idea that, this is a universe that makes sense, in itself. Like everything that you see is real in that universe. It's not like someone just thought, hey, that looks sci-fi as fuck, let's put that in there. Like you get a feeling like you're peeking into a real space, not watching a story that someone wrote and decided to put some, sci-fi trappings on.
And
So
of course,
that Supervisor's Tower, all of that, I'm like, this is weird as hell, but it seems to follow its own internal logic to where I can like now think about stuff and get all these like crazy ideas of like what other stories took place here hundreds of thousands of years ago. And like, I love that. Every week I was left with just like, my mind was a
whirling transient node of
there you go. Thank you.
Whirling transient nodes of thought careening through a cosmic vapor of invention.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think the best thing that this show did for the Star Wars feel was it sparked your imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Miranda brings up a really good point here. I was actually just about to mention this, Miranda. Thank you for mentioning it. She says, the supervisor's room reminded me of that old show we watched and you guys did a show on where the droids take over the ship. I think, if I'm thinking correctly, are you talking about the black hole, Miranda? Because that kind of reminded me of like, I kind of had that feel of like, again, like going back to like how it was kind of like the Matrix and Terminator, they, machines take over, but it's dark apocalyptic thing. Whereas the supervisor kind of is like the upbeat, positive kind of thing, and it also reminded me of, the master control program in Tron, just the shape of the, it was like half of the master control program from the original Tron movie.
I think that's a lot of what worked is like a lot of this, the visuals were very 80s inspired. It very much took cues from the stuff that came right after the original trilogy.
Yeah.
In our real life timeline. So like 83 hits. And then this looked like it was made in roughly 1985.
Yeah.
Which was perfect.
Nick Hall says HAL 3000, but benevolent. Yeah. That's an excellent comparison. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I loved how they did it. Like, I mean, like, like you're right, AJ, like the look of it was so, they did such a great balancing act of the old and the new. And, Chris, you had said you love seeing the older stuff. I think one of my favorite things about the show is that they, it gives me hope for the writing, because to me, I haven't seen an original story that has fallen on its face yet in the Disney Plus stuff. For example, and when I say that, I'm saying, Ahsoka, I'm not a fan of. To me, it's live action Clone Wars. That kind of came from an existing thing. Acolyte is based on the Jedi and the Sith type of thing. So we've already seen that sort of thing. But when you get to like Bad Batch, it's based on Clone Wars. Yes. So I guess I can't really count that one, but I thought that was, but like this, like Andor, it comes off of Rogue One. So that's kind of, but when you talk about something like Skeleton Crew, it's like a wholly original thing. Yeah, and they just totally knocked it out of the park. And so, and The Mandalorian is a wholly original thing, and they knocked that out of the park. So I like the fact that it kind of continues this trend of properties that come out of nowhere that we don't have backstory on that turn out to be excellent. It lets me know that, the Star Wars franchise is in really good hands. And I know Chris, I would, you're a big proponent of keeping it going and, keeping Star Wars alive all the time. And you talk a lot about, the dark times or whatever, in the 80s and stuff after Jedi. And so, I'm kind of with you on that. I like, I've said on the show many times that I don't care what they put out. I like that they do, because even if I don't like it, it can open up a story that I might like. And so
Yeah,
I love that these shows like Mando and Skeleton Crew are showing that the people in charge of writing this stuff get Star Wars, and they understand how to write it, how to make it feel like Star Wars, but make it original and something new within this universe that's been around for almost 50 years. And at times can feel like we've seen it all. So I love that about this show. And I'm just, I really hope they do more of it, because I thought they did it well. Even to the point where, the Easter eggs that I mentioned, they were so obvious in so many places, but it didn't feel stupid. AJ, I know, like AJ, you always kind of complain when there's too much fan service and it's too obvious.
Mm.
Well, these Easter eggs were definitely very obvious. I mean, they ripped shots directly from E.T. There was, the Goonies references, were everywhere, things like that. But it worked. And I love that. It's like, you'd watch it go, oh man, there's, 33 is Smee from Hook. SM33, it's Smee from Hook. That right there. And everyone caught it except for me, because I've never seen Hook. But everybody who has caught it right away. But no one complained, oh, that's so ham-fisted. People loved it.
More of a tribute, an ode to.
Yes. That's the perfect word. Yeah, it's like an ode to or a tribute to all these things they did. And they did it beautifully. They wrapped it around this original story. And, it works so well. And I love that they have people, on their writing teams that care enough about this property to give it such love and attention to be able to, to provide us something this good. Because it would be so easy to put out a piece of shit, and just like, oh, here's some more lightsabers. Here's the Force. Here's another Jedi story. Like, but they're not, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. And so that was so, so cool.
One of the things that might be a little too easy for them to do, but I always really love enjoying seeing it, is the alien species that go back to the original trilogy. We've seen them in everything, even Skeleton Crew. I just love seeing old familiar aliens.
Yeah.
Well, you should love Wolfman Jack then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did, yeah, but I didn't cry when he died.
Right.
Yeah, for our younger viewers who don't know the original trilogy, the non-special edition, Brutus, the Wolfman Jack pirate, was in the cantina in the original version of A New Hope, and then was swapped out for a different alien in the special editions and beyond. So he's like an OG cantina alien that has been erased from Star Wars history, basically.
And now he's back.
Again, an O2, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I didn't want to say that out loud in case I was wrong, but I thought that too the first time I saw him. I was like, wait, is he one of the? Because I've got the despecialized editions on DVD, and I was like, wait a minute, is that like one of the original Cantina monsters? So
Yeah,
Yep,
I saw
exactly.
somebody, you saw the Reese character in there, and then you had seen the Snaggletooth character in there.
yep,
And then Bubo, I think it's Bubo, the barking frog in Jabba's palace. Do you see the little one in the driveway that they had? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God.
yes, yeah, yep.
Like, I love that shit. I just think a quick little, not going crazy with the fan service, but just giving us some familiarity where it all started from,
Yeah,
I do love this idea. I've got to go back and rewatch it, because I want to know if like the entire pirate crew was made up of Cantina aliens. That would be outstanding.
I think it was a crossbreed between Cantina and Jabba's palace.
Would that be great? It's all stuff that was like removed when they did the special editions.
Yeah.
And these writers are like, "F you, we're bringing it back. Like, we're bringing all these guys back, man." So
Now, if season 2 brings Joe Yauza back into canon, though, I'm out. I'm out.
yeah.
Yeah. I will suffer no more Jedi rocks. That is done. I'm old school. I'm a traditionalist. I only want a jizz whale.
Yeah, and hey, you gotta have size noodles too, man. You know, you gotta have
Right.
size noodles.
Oh my God, I love
Like
it.
jizz whale. Be careful when you Google that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, right. When I first found that term out a couple years ago, I was like, "What the nah?" like Top Gun, nah. It's so bad.
No, I love the Star Wars Easter eggs in this too, though. Like the little stuff like how many vaults are there? There's 1,139.
Yeah.
Oh, there
Almost
was
1138, but there's one more.
there was a
Or like, isn't it
mom.
Neil's mom who says I have a bad and
Yep.
then gets like stunned or whatever?
yeah,
Yeah,
totally, it totally does.
Yeah.
Yeah, they you know, we'll get to final thoughts here. Yeah, Jeff Caffrey, I was wondering that. He says no Bith pirates as far as I remember. That was, see, now we're all going to pause it and look in the background and just kind of like look and see.
I feel like it's been a minute since I've seen a Bith in the Disney TV shows. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we saw one in Acolyte and then that got canceled. So, Jeff Caffrey, 1139 crushed my soul. You saw a Bith in Acolyte, but then the internet dickheads had to go and crush that show. So there goes that. Final thoughts on the show. We'll start with you, AJ.
This show renewed my faith in the direction of Star Wars under Disney stewardship. Like you were saying earlier, I was really worried that anything coming out of them was going to be. I thought they were going to get scared and start just attaching everything to the Skywalker saga because it was the only thing that worked so far. And I love the fact that we've got a new story that has all their own ideas, still pays homage in the same way that George Lucas paid homage to, things that he loved too. And I think finally we've got something that everybody, as far as I can tell online, can get behind. So Disney can stop pogoing around and trying to hope they've got a hit on their hands and kind of understand more like what the DNA of Star Wars is that we gravitate towards and make more of that moving forward. So yeah, the show I think was fantastic. And I think it kind of casts the template for Disney to pay attention to. And like I said, it actually united the fandom for a change, which God, that never happens. So
Yeah. I think for me, like I agree with you. Like I said, I love that it gives you hope that they have people that actually care about Star Wars enough to put forth the effort to do something so original and kind of daring in a way, but also keep it rooted in the old school. I love that. This show was just fun to me. It was, when it started out, everyone was, we said this on the last episode when we talked about the first two episodes, AJ, but, we had, and Chris, this, we were told about the concept for this show at Celebration back in, was it 22? And AJ and I are both kind of like, okay. And it just sounded like little kids running around the forest and there's a Jedi saving them. Like, okay, well, we'll watch it because it's Star Wars. And I was, and again, it does veer a little teeny bit more to the kids side of things, I would say, but it's not to the point where you're like, oh, this is for kids, like Resistance was, like this is for kids. Like, okay, this kind of is not my thing. And so I was very pleasantly surprised. I loved the tone of it. I love how there was tension in every episode, like, oh, what's going to happen? And I thought it was very smartly written. I really, really enjoyed this show. And, every episode, was this my favorite? No, but it's way up there for me. I'll tell you that. Like, it was just really, really enjoyable. It was like a Star Wars show, like, where I'm trying to think what to compare it to, but it was like one of those experiences when you go to the movies or something, or you read a book kind of like, I would say, like the first Harry Potter book, where, when you start getting into stuff like Goblet of Fire and, Deathly Hallows, like it's heavy and it's weighty. Whereas the first Harry Potter book, it's just 3 friends running around learning magic. Yay. And and you get the little conflict at the end, with Voldemort or whatever. But for the most part, it's lighthearted. It's an easy read. It's fun. There's some, trials and tribulations along the way, and I feel like this was kind of like that. It was very easy to digest, but it had enough of the old school stuff for fans like me, fans like me. And it was just really, really well done. And I hope they do more of it because I like the characters. I like the story and I like where they could go with this. This whole Aten thing, like what was Aten? What are these 9 planets? What can we learn about the greater galaxy because of this? So yeah, big fan. So Chris, your final thoughts.
I went into this going, oh fuck, here's another Star Wars project that everybody's going to shit on, or most people anyway. Right. And that kind of kept me like, I was, like I said, I was enjoying the holidays. I would rather watch Rudolph and Charlie Brown Christmas than take a deep dive into Star Wars. Star Wars was going to be there in the first of the year for me. And when I watched it, I enjoyed it like I enjoyed everything that came before it. I know that sometimes I'm the odd man out there, but I think for me, this is the first time, and I'm just a little voice, I feel like this is the first time I didn't feel like I had to go to bed for Star Wars. I was like, wow, everybody's enjoying this. Nobody's shitting on it. And so it was a very peaceful outcome for me in that way. And again, John, just like we've said, I'm glad that they keep putting out new Star Wars stuff. I am glad that this hit the reset button in the Star Wars fan community. I think that's my biggest takeaway from it. Because if everybody was shitting over this, then I would have to go to bat for it.
Right.
I could just talk about it and enjoy it. And like AJ, you even said, man, I enjoyed this. And maybe you didn't enjoy The Acolyte. But this restored your faith in the franchise. And I know you're not the only one that has said that. And when I hear people say that, there's a peaceful feeling that I get from that. And I think that, again, that's my biggest takeaway from this whole new Star Wars project that we just got done watching today, for me anyway.
I don't think there's any bigger compliment the show could get than that. Do you guys? I don't.
No, I don't think so. I think,
remember when Star Wars was fun? Now I do.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Chris, I'll put you in the green room here, and we'll talk to you once we go off air here for a second. But thank you so very much for coming on yet again. As always, man, you are awesome. It is such a blast having you on. We work so well together, man. Like it's like we're like Reese's peanut butter cups. We're the chocolate to each other's peanut butter, So pimp out all your stuff before you go.
If you liked my comments, if you liked my vibe, check out Mocktails from the Cantina on YouTube. And if you're supporting from a financial level, go to Mocktails from the Cantina on Patreon. And I actually have free memberships right now. On the last YouTube live show, there was a link. There are still some unclaimed memberships in there. And then, of course, The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us, and the soon-to-be-released, finished, I should say, reality show on Amazon. You could check those out there. So, again,
what do you mean? What do you mean soon to be finished? Are we getting more?
We are, but that's for another show, another time.
I love that, man.
Nice
Real
tease.
fans.
Nice tease.
We aren't getting more. Brother Sean Hines was poking me in the ass and slapping me in the balls, and he's like, "We got to get this done." So I made the appropriate phone calls, and I'm assembling a team to get this done once and for all.
Yes. If you
So
guys
there's
don't know what
ball
we're talking about,
smashes and ass slaps going on. Okay, that's what I heard.
this is the R-rated version of Real Fans of the Saga. Yeah, guys, real quick. So what we're
Coming
discussing,
soon to OnlyFans.
Yeah, Chris made an awesome reality show that you can you can check out on Amazon Prime. Is it on Prime or is it? I bought it, so
yeah. You know what? I know it's on Amazon. I don't know if it's still on Prime, but it is on Amazon.
Well, even if it's not on Prime, guys, go buy it. But Chris did an awesome reality show called Real Fans of the Saga, and it basically goes through he and his 3 best friends and some other buddies of theirs. Like it's them going to Celebration Anaheim, and it's 2015, right? Isn't that the one?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's them doing Celebration. So you get to see some of how Celebration works, what AJ and I have talked about. But yeah, it's him and his buddies kind of doing the Celebration thing, and I love it. Like I say, I own it, and I just absolutely love it. So make sure to go check that out, guys. Again, it's called Real Fans of the Saga, and his show is Mocktails from the Cantina. I put it along the bottom there. Mocktails spelled MACHTAILS. So make sure to check that out. His show is awesome, very much like the Nerf Herder Council. So, Chris, once again, thanks. I will put you in the green room. We'll talk to you in just a second here.
See you in a bit, man. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. Well, there goes our very good friend, Mr. Chris Mocked. Dude, he is always such a great guest, man. Like I'm not just saying it because we're buddies and whatnot. Like we work so well together with that guy. Like he fits our vibe. We fit his vibe. It's just, and he's so knowledgeable about this stuff and he's so passionate. So, huge thanks to him for coming on. So, yeah, as always, dude, another great episode. This was a blast. We're going to be right back here on Wednesday, January 30th. At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Topic to be determined. We do have a lot of stuff that we're talking about doing, and keep an eye out on our socials for what we're going to be digging into. So
this is going to be an interesting year for the show because Disney and in most of their properties is pulling back on the quantity of content. So we're going to have more time to actually reflect on stuff instead of just keeping up with the churn of whatever's coming out next.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Topic suggestions are welcome because we've got time apparently. Yeah, we only have a couple of Marvel movies coming out. I think Andor Season 2 is the only Star Wars project that's been confirmed so far. Probably something many somethings will be confirmed at Celebration, but yeah. So the books are open. We're going to come up with something, but if you got something you want us to talk about, by all means, drop us a note on our socials.
Yep, hit us up on social media. You can send us an email at nerfherdercouncil@gmail.com. We're always open to suggestions, as AJ said. So, yeah, thanks to everybody in the chat tonight. Kale McLeish, Nick Hall, Miranda Helmet, great to see you. Our good friend Mimar, Joseph Wren, Discography Joe, Jeff Caffrey, great to see you. So, Chastity Crawley, as always. And again, guys, we will be right back here on Wednesday, January 30th. At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chastity is already saying no Harry Potter for a couple of weeks. She's moving, so we can't do Prisoner of Azkaban yet. So there we go. Kale wants a Bond movie, maybe Moonraker if you want to do the Star Wars tie-in. I've actually never watched a James Bond movie all the way through, so maybe that would be something.
Crap.
Yeah, just never really interested me, but maybe we can do that. I always like doing something I've never seen. But, yeah, so guys, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. If you are watching on our YouTube channel or that of the Virtual Cantina Network, make sure that you are subscribed, that you hit that like button, and hit the notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. We are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. If you would like to get Virtual Cantina Network swag, go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. And again, guys, if you would like some awesome customizable Nerf Herder Council swag, go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. AJ has some phenomenal designs up there. They have some really cool shirts up there now too. There's like an acid wash black that just looks vintage, and it's just the shirts look great. So grab yourself some swag.
Acid wash.
There it is. AJ's wearing it. See, that's so cool, man.
Oversized print.
That's why he's shrinking it down. So yeah, so once again, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. We'll be right back here on Wednesday, January 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, I am your host, JT. He is AJ.
At Drake Adams, 579.
Guys, we will see you later.
me.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus, me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my nerf herder.
You my nerf herder.